There was only ever one of them, 6 engines, 640 tons at maximum weight, 224 world records, nothing else has ever touched. This aircraft could lift cargo that nothing else built by human hands could carry. On the 27th of February 2022, it burned to ash inside a hangar outside Kiev, caught in a war that had nothing to do with it. By every normal rule, that's where this story ends. Except it isn't. A few kilometers from the wreckage sits a second Antonov An-225, about 70% complete, untouched since 1991. 34 years, and nobody has finished it. So why has it sat there this long? And now that the first one is gone, could this second airframe actually take its place? Russian forces launched their assault on Hostomel Airport, just northwest of Kiev, in the opening hours of the invasion, and the airfield instantly became one of the most contested pieces of ground in the entire war. As late as February 23rd, the day before the attack began, no decision had been made to move the aircraft anywhere. Ukraine announced the Mriya's destruction on February 27th, and when the smoke cleared, the damage matched the worst fears. The nose crushed, the wings scorched beyond repair. What followed was not just grief, it was a genuine scandal. Antonov's chief pilot, Dmytro Antonov, publicly accused the company's own leadership of ignoring repeated NATO warnings to relocate the fleet to Leipzig, Germany. He claimed the engines had already been reassembled days earlier, that 70 tons of fuel sat ready on board, enough by his account to make the flight, and that no evacuation plan had ever been filed while management quietly left the country themselves. He raised the possibility of sabotage, of ties to Russian interests. Antonov's management rejected all of it, insisting the aircraft was mid-maintenance, one engine only reinstalled a single day before the fighting started, and that 70 tons of fuel would never have covered a flight of that distance in the first place. None of this reduces down to a simple technical failure. Ukroboronprom, the state defense conglomerate that owns Antonov, suspended director Sergei Bychkov and opened an investigation. The real question was never about mechanics. It was about whether the failure to move the aircraft was negligence, incompetence, or something closer to deliberate sabotage tied to Russian interests. That question has never been publicly resolved. And underneath the scandal sits a harder truth. The Mriya was never built as a commercial product with a supply chain behind it. It was a single, purpose-built machine born out of a Soviet space program that stopped existing decades before the war even began, kept flying commercially almost by accident. When it burned, Ukraine didn't just lose an aircraft. It lost the only working example on Earth of a machine that nothing else could fully replace, and it lost it in a hangar, on the ground, before it ever had the chance to fly away. Here's the part most coverage of this story skips entirely. The An-225 was never actually meant to be a one-of-a-kind aircraft. It was designed from the start as a pair. Back in the early 1980s, the Soviet Union needed a way to carry the Buran space shuttle and its oversized components from factories near Moscow all the way to the Baikonur launch site in Kazakhstan, thousands of kilometers away, far beyond what rail or road could handle. Antonov took its existing An-124 Ruslan cargo plane, stretched the fuselage, widened the wings, added extra engines, swapped the single tail for a twin tail design to avoid turbulence from the shuttle riding on its back, and reinforced the landing gear with 32 wheels to spread out the weight. The first airframe flew in December 1988. The second one never got that far. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, the Buran program was canceled overnight, and the second Mriya, already roughly 70% built, was simply abandoned mid-construction in a hangar outside Kiev. Not destroyed, not scrapped, just left there. For 34 years, which means the aircraft that burned in 2022 was never actually irreplaceable in the way the world assumed. A second fuselage has been sitting a few kilometers away this entire time. The real question was never whether a backup existed. It's why nobody finished it in 3.5 decades, and it turns out the answer runs far deeper than money alone. Every attempt to finish that second airframe has run into a different wall, and each one reveals something new about just how hard it is to resurrect a Cold War machine decades later. Antonov itself made the first attempt, starting in 2006 and pushing through to 2008, riding the commercial success the first Mriya was having, hauling wind turbine blades, locomotives, and industrial generators for customers who had nowhere else to turn. The company had already proven the model worked, spending just $20 million in the late 1990s to bring the first aircraft back into commercial service rather than building new. But finishing the second airframe wasn't the same kind of job as reactivating the first one had been. The project stalled on cost before it ever got close to the finish line. A Chinese aviation company tried next, in 2011, proposing to fund completion of the second aircraft in exchange for manufacturing and operating rights, reportedly eyeing it as a platform for space launch support. Talks went nowhere. The economics of a single, hand-built aircraft with no production line behind it simply didn't work for an outside investor looking for a return on that scale. Then came 2022, and with it a promise. Within days of the first Mriya's destruction, Ukrainian officials vowed the aircraft would fly again, framing the rebuild as a symbol of national resilience. But the numbers tell a different story than the rhetoric. Early estimates put the cost of finishing the second airframe at around $300 million, roughly what a brand new Airbus A380 costs today. That figure has since climbed to nearly $500 million, and the reason is not simple inflation. The supply chain that originally built these components was scattered across the Soviet Union, heavily concentrated in factories that are now inside Russia. Ukraine cannot exactly call up its wartime enemy for spare parts. Every missing piece has to be reverse engineered or rebuilt from scratch, in some cases replacing 40-year-old Soviet systems with Western equivalents inside an airframe never designed for them. And then there is the wall nobody outside the industry talks about. The original Mriya flew for over 3 decades under what's known as a grandfathered certification, meaning it was held to the safety and noise standards that existed when it was first approved, not the standards of today. The second airframe gets no such exemption. Finish it now, and regulators treat it as a brand new aircraft entirely, which means a modern digital cockpit, current generation navigation systems, and compliance with noise and safety rules that didn't exist when the fuselage was first welded together. What started as finishing the last 30% quietly becomes redesigning the aircraft around a shell built for a different century. Here's what keeps this from being a simple story of loss, though. The market gap the Mriya used to fill, moving cargo too large for any other aircraft on Earth, hasn't disappeared. If anything, it has grown more urgent, driven largely by the renewable energy industry's need to move increasingly massive wind turbine blades to sites that roads and rail simply cannot reach. That is exactly the opening a Colorado-based company called Radia is chasing with an aircraft called WindRunner. At roughly 109 meters long, with 10 times the cargo volume of a Boeing 777, it is being designed from a blank sheet specifically for outsized cargo, rather than adapted from a decades-old military airframe. As of mid-2026, the program has entered an industrialization phase, with around 24 suppliers under contract, new partnerships with Italy's government and aerospace firms including Leonardo, and a first flight still targeted for around 2030. The difference matters enormously. WindRunner isn't fighting a grandfathered certification loophole that no longer applies, a scattered Soviet-era supply chain, or a country consumed by war. It is a clean sheet design built for modern certification from the very first drawing, which raises an uncomfortable possibility for the Mriya's legacy. The world may not actually be waiting for the second and 225 to get finished. It may simply be moving on to whatever replaces the role the Mriya once filled. None of this means the Mriya's story is fully settled either way. The war in Ukraine could end in a way that frees up engineering capacity and reconstruction funding for exactly this kind of symbolic project, and governments have poured money into far less practical national symbols before. International donors have occasionally floated interest in funding the rebuild specifically because of what it would represent to a country trying to prove it can still build, not just defend. But every month that passes makes the technical gap wider, not narrower. The engineers who understood the original airframe are retiring or gone. The Soviet-era supplier network keeps eroding further with each passing year. And competitors like WindRunner are not waiting around. Every year they move closer to commercial service is a year in which the case for finishing a 40-year-old airframe gets weaker rather than stronger. There is also a harder truth sitting underneath the entire debate. Even fully rebuilt, the second Mriya would still be a single aircraft, with no production line behind it and no fleet of sister ships supporting it, carrying the exact same fragility that made the loss of the first one so catastrophic in the first place. Put it all together and you get a legend whose comeback is being held hostage by circumstance, not by any lack of will. So here's where it lands. Technically, finishing the second Mriya is possible. The airframe exists. The concept has already been proven once. An aircraft this size can absolutely fly. But possible and practical are not the same thing. Between the cost, the legal reset to modern certification, a war consuming every spare resource the country has, and a new generation of purpose-built giants like WindRunner already gaining ground, the second and 225 may end up finished in theory long before it is ever finished in reality. Is Ukraine right to keep chasing this as a symbol worth every dollar and every year it takes? Or is it chasing a legend the rest of the world has already started moving past? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if stories like this are your thing, subscribe for more deep dives into the aircraft that shaped aviation history.